Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here today. I'm, of course, Gregor Guy, joined here by Mr. Coz and Mr. Casey. We will be doing our next iteration of Banghead History. We are also joined by a very special off-camera guest this week, Mr. Corey. You want to say hello, Mr. Corey?
Word.
Fair enough.
Do a hand gesture.
So I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to you, Casey.
The hand.
What are we going to talk about this week?
This week we're talking about the Knights Templar. And I chose it because in January of 1129 AD, they were formally endorsed by the Catholic Church, and this is the month of January. So around 1118 AD, with the support of King Baldwin, the King of Jerusalem at the time, a French knight by the name of Hughes de Paynes, he founded a military order along with 8 other acquaintances, but they was originally called the Poor Knights of the Temple of King Solomon, and it was later known as the Knights Templar.
So were they poor?
I mean, they did take a vow of poverty, so in other words, they were kind of poor, but in the end, it didn't end up that way.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't think it worked that way in the end. Yeah.
And basically, they were formed with the task of the protection of pilgrims traveling from Western Europe towards the Holy Lands.
So they're like the first sheriffs.
Well, once they captured during the Crusades, they captured cities.
Well, before that, I mean, originally.
Yeah, not only the Crusaders, but also the civilians traveling back and forth were being constantly harassed and robbed and killed by the Muslims in the area, which were basically the real owners of the area, anyways, by the locals. And they needed protection traveling from one place to another in the area. And basically, they were, I guess, the sheriffs or the protectors of the travelers. All right.
So in other words, yeah, sheriffs.
Yeah. In January of 1129, they were formally endorsed by the Catholic Church, and they began collecting donations from Europe and developing their uniforms, which were embossed by the Red Cross. Their real success actually was due to the fact that they created a banking system. So the banking system...
Known as Abstergo.
The banking system... Here we go. We already started into the Assassin's Creed references.
This whole time, I picture you like playing Assassin's Creed in your head.
So the way the banking system worked was so that you didn't have to carry your riches with you, or whatever wealthy that you had, from Europe to Jerusalem and Acre and the cities in the Holy Lands.
I believe it's pronounced Acre, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. I see it. I see the word acre, A-C-R-E. But I mean, it could either way. I don't know. Tomato, tomato. But I'm going to call it acre because that's what I've known. America. Anyways, so you would deposit your money into the banking system in Europe through the Knights Templar, and when you made it to the Holy Lands, I'm sure with a fee, you would be able to withdraw your holdings in the Holy Lands.
Okay.
So not only did they have the banking system, they also had a large fleet of ships, and they also owned the island of Cyprus.
Do we know what the value of the island of Cyprus was at this point in time?
I don't know what the value was. I'm sure it. Just owning a large island, I'm sure that it was definitely.
I mean, was it a good was it like a transport hub?
And I didn't really look it up, but it's also possible that that the church gave them the island.
That's what I'm wondering. Does the church own that island, or does the Knights Templars own that island? Because First thing you got me is like, oh, the church started taking donations.
Right.
Right.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And that actually leads me into my next section, where how the order was given special privileges by the Pope himself, and they answered only to the Pope, and they were not required to pay a tithe to the church or tax to the church.
I believe it's called a tithe, but
all right, let's correct everything I say.
It's the mustache.
So that's like a...
it makes me smarter. What do you want?
I think it makes you more of an asshole.
IQ points,
Maybe.
So let's talk about the knights now. The knights swore an oath of chastity. All right, I think I'll start this over in a second.
No, go on. Something about chastity belts.
So let's talk about the knights now. The knights themselves, they swore an oath of chastity, an oath of poverty, and an oath against any holdings outside the order. They were also, this basically made them religious zealots. All they really did was pray and fight and work for the order. They didn't have anything else outside of the order. That's basically what they were meant to do.
Pray and fight and work for the order?
Yeah. That's all. That's what their life
sounds like a cult.
consisted of. I mean, you could say it was a cult. You definitely
People
could.
were scared to death of religion back then. Too.
Right.
Oh yeah, very true.
And you couldn't be an independent thinker back then because
Yeah, they were scared.
Yeah, they were also required to sleep and eat in community, being around each other at all times.
How do you become something like this?
That's probably something I should have looked at.
Yeah, that's
I believe there's a ceremony involved.
There is a
and,
ceremony.
Usually you're giving a hidden blade
Is
at
it
that point in
personal?
time.
But I'm wondering, is it personal choice or is it like...
That was the assassin. That wasn't the
I would imagine that it was a volunteer for the most part.
Okay.
Just people trying to escape their regular lives. You know what I mean? That they didn't want to be farmers. They wanted to be part of an army, part of something bigger than themselves.
Right.
Now there wasn't just.
But go on.
that fucking.
I don't think we should use the mustaches during the history thing.
I think the mustaches are distracting.
They're a little distracting.
It doesn't matter. We're doing it this one. Keep muscling through.
Okay. The Templars were not.
Now we're committed.
The Templars were not just made of knights. There were also two other classes within the Templars. There was the sergeants and the chaplains. The knights generally came from aristocratic and wealthy families.
So they were the rich motherfuckers.
Right. And the sergeants, they generally came from lower class households and acted
The poor motherfuckers.
Right. They both acted both as fighters and servants. The chaplains were mainly there just to hold church services and address the spiritual needs of the soldiers. And then other than the Muslims that they fought in the Holy Land, they also had a rival order in Europe. The order was called the Hospitaliers, which you might also find from Assassin's Creed. Was part of Assassin's Creed. They had the Hospitaliers there.
I actually don't remember that.
So the actual fall of the Knights, it occurred when they began losing a foothold in the Holy Lands. They lost Jerusalem first, and then eventually they lost the last Crusader stronghold, which is Acre. I said it a third way now.
Okay, fair enough. Do we know during which crusade this was?
I did not.
Because I think there was like 20.
Right. I think
crusades.
it was towards the ends of the Crusade, so I think it was probably around the third or the second Crusade.
Okay, fair enough.
So after losing Acre, the kings, the European kings, and the aristocrats basically had no interest in resettling or supporting the Knights Templar. Although they still did hold their banking system, they were still a major part of politics in Europe. So the final downfall was when the King of France, King Philip IV, who was basically short on money. He saw the knights as a political threat, and he ordered the arrest of all the knights and charged them with blasphemy and seized their property.
And, yeah, basically took all their banking system money.
Right. Yeah. They were all over Europe, and once that first domino fell, the other kings and wealthy landowners in the areas basically seized all the properties of the Knights Templar. So basically, this is what they were charged with. They charged them with idol worship. The idol was of a bearded male. That was a bearded male head that was said to have great powers, and they worshipped a cat. They were also charged with homosexuality, and it was claimed that new members would have to deny Christ 3 times and spat on the cross. And it was also kissed on the base of the spine, on the navel, and the mouth by the knights presiding over the ceremony.
I don't even know what the fuck that even means.
Basically, they just charged them with heresy of all kinds of different...
And then they fucked a cat?
So, it wasn't... They didn't fuck a cat. They used a cat as an idol, so they would worship a cat.
Okay.
None of these things. There was never any proof of any these things happening. It's just what they were charged with, and you know how the legal system worked in that time.
Yeah.
It didn't.
She's a witch. Yeah. Fucking drown her.
Burn her. Fair enough. It's very true.
And basically, if the knights confessed their heresy, they were sent to retirement, and those that did not confess were sent to life imprisonment.
Which probably fucking sucked back then.
Oh, I'm sure it did. I'm sure life imprisonment did not
Last long.
much of
Yeah,
life.
it didn't last very long, that's for sure.
Long
Did not last long at all.
And that's
All
it
right,
for the
well.
Knights Templar.
I like how you put
Knights
that one
Templar.
together this week.
Yes, that was actually very informative. I feel like I learned something. Especially about them fucking a cat.
There was no cat fucking.
What stuck out to me was the great bearded man. What was it? The great bearded man
Right.
with superpowers? Is that what you said?
Right.
Isn't that how it always happens? Somebody fucking gains some traction in history, and then they say, "Fuck you, we don't
Great
like
bearded
that."
man with superpowers.
Fuck you.
Homosexual.
Not to be anti-religion or anything, but Jesus was a bearded man that they had said had special powers as well. So.
All right, that's fair. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. Banghead History, our next iteration. We talked about the Order of the Knights Templar. Thank you very much for putting that together, Miss Casey, man. Like I said, I feel like I learned something. I'm, of course, Gregory Guy, joined here by Mr. Cuz, our very special off-the-camera guest, Mr. Corey, and, of course, once again, thank you for putting that together, Mr. Casey. Ladies and gentlemen, you have a wonderful day.